we would go to dinner a lot, and my wife adored him, so they would go. So our personal relationship is interesting. We didn't talk that much about music, except when I would bring it up. He wouldn't bring it up. And he was very happy to be conversational about what he did, what he intended to do. I found Daniel not only entertaining, but in a way his life was transformational. He, you know, his biography reads almost like a movie script. It's really interesting how he changed, and he embraced change. He embraced that kind of open attitude toward life and his art. So when we were sitting around the dinner table, we would talk about things like that, but we talked a lot about poetry, we talked a lot about drama, the influences on his, not only his music, but just his attitudes about life. And he was so self-deprecating. You know, at first one could be easily intimidated by a man like that, but he was never intimidating to anybody. And he loved to have a good time. We took him to a restaurant once. It's a very traditional place in Austin. That's sort of a landmark restaurant. And the next time I was in town, I said, let's go to dinner. He said, can you take me back to that place? I really like it. But we talked about, when we talked about his work, we didn't go into musical analysis. We went into character analysis. So anytime we had conversations outside of a production area, it was about being true to the character, which for Daniel is being true to himself. It's interesting how he put himself in different characters. And then when we had these conversations, it was all about life philosophy too. So he was a very interesting man just to be around him. Not only just about music, but about everything else too. We had when Il Postino premiered in LA, we intended to do it here, and we did on campus. And we had a breakfast meeting, which turned into a lunch meeting, I mean, the hotel restaurant just sort of came and went, and we sat there just not only about producing the work, but about everything else. The serious conversations we had were usually about family and about his relationship with Andrea, for example, and how much when we would be on the road, he would miss her, and about the relationship with their son. And those were the kind of serious conversations we had, because, you know, I could sympathize. I spent most of my professional life on the road and separated from my family. So we really were on the same level with that kind of a conversation. It was about how you handle it emotionally, how you handle it with your work and having to put everything in a box so you can do your work. So those were the serious kinds of things we talked about. He was always looking forward and with an open mind and an open heart about what was going to happen to him next. And we talked about, you know, maybe settling into a different kind of university position. Again, to have a more stable life. We all have worked very hard for that. And those are the conversations we had that were serious. Then they would start laughing about it, because you have to. I've read lots of reviews. When we first saw Rappaccini's Daughter, my wife said, it's lush. I have since read that word used to describe Daniel Catan in newspapers around the world and articles written about his work and reviews. It's really interesting how different people from different walks of life have the same word to describe his music. It's fascinating. We found about his passing why we were on stage doing Il Postino. And when I wasn't on stage, I was on the phone with Andrea. And she said, how did you do it? How did you get through it? I said, I've always felt like he was sitting right here, watching. She said, I do too.
Guzman, ayúdame, Guzman, todo se derrumba. Mi pueblo,